in the future or at any time, if anything happens to me, it's them.
"20-year-old Banaz Mahmod was one of the 5 daughters of Mahmoud Babakir Mahmud and his wife Beya. The family had moved from Iraq in 1995 to seek asylum in England when Banaz was only 10 years old. With their asylum granted, they settled in the city of Mitcham in South London, England. Their father, Mahmoud, was one of 4 brothers living in the South London area. Although he was the eldest, he was not the head of the family. Rather, that role was taken by his younger brother, Ari Mahmoud, as he was the wealthiest. As a traditional and strict Kurdish family, arranged marriages were still the order of day for them. As a result, Banaz's eldest sister had an arranged marriage, as did her younger sister, who was married at 16 to a man 15 years her senior. Bikhal, 2 years older than Banaz, fled the family home in 2002 and spent time in a foster care, but she would always stay in touch with her brother. Bikhal reported that she had been subjected to physical abuse and threats because she mixed with people her family did not approve of and experimented with Western clothing and hairstyles. Her father Mahmoud's failure to control Bikhal was viewed as a weakness within the Kurdish community, and he was subjected to a degree of ostracism as a result. On one particular call, Bikhal's brother had begged her to meet with him in person. He lured her to a remote location and got her to carry a suitcase, walk along a path in front of him, and told her to keep walking and to not look back and don't worry what he's doing. Suddenly, he struck her with a dumbbell to the back of the head, and while attempting to drag her, she screamed, "Look at what you're doing. You're actually trying to kill me." At that moment, he stopped and began crying and told her, "I'm sorry, but I'm the big man after my father, and I have to put this shame to an end." He also told her that her father paid him to take her to her father so that he could kill her. She then reported the attempt to kill her, and her father threatened to kill her mother, sisters, and himself if she did not return to the family home. Instead of returning home, Bikhal lived under hiding, constantly moving and never leaving the house without wearing a full veil. At the age of 17, Banaz's family married her away to a man 10 years older than her named Ali. They had only met once before, and he came straight from Iraq. They had nothing in common, and he strictly adhered to Kurdish cultures and traditions. She described him as illiterate in his mindset as something from 50 years ago. After 2 years of marriage, Banaz came into contact with the police throughout her marriage, reporting that she had been raped and beaten on multiple occasions.
I was just 17 there. And some of the times it was in the living room that he raped me, or in the bedroom. I didn't know if this was normal in my culture or in here. I was only 17, so I just let him do what he liked. Whenever he raped me, it was like I was his shoe and he would wear it just whenever he felt like it. Ali had told me to, if anyone had seen me, just tell them that you fell in the bathroom. He made me believe that my family had loved him more than they loved me, and if I ever told anyone that he would kill me or that I've got no family around me and they're far away from me, so he could do anything with me as he liked. I didn't try to defend myself or anything. I just cried and that was it.
Her family were aware of the violence inflicted upon her, but told her that leaving her husband would bring shame on them. Her family was aware of the violence inflicted upon her, but told her that leaving her husband would bring shame on them. Despite this, and with the abuse continuing, she eventually left him and returned to the family home in July 2005. Leaving a marriage in strict Kurdish culture is not allowed, and in Bikhal's words, it is the worst thing a woman could do. Because the family and those back home in Iraq viewed her ex-husband Ali in such high regard, the divorce brought further shame to the family. Banaz soon started a relationship with someone of her own choosing, 28-year-old Rahmat Soleimani. They started off talking, but then it soon progressed into a romantic relationship where they talked every day from morning until night about their futures together. But as soon as she began her new relationship, she became worried that her ex-husband was sending men to follow her around.
I recognised my face, and he hasn't come to my house ever, but I've seen him on occasions on weddings and that. And even now when I go out, I mean, one guy, as soon as I came out of the house, he was following me with a car. I heard someone calling my name in my language. So I turned around and he told me that he should give me a lift and I should go into his car. And I said no and just put my head down and keep walking. People following me, or still now they follow me. And that was the main reason that I came to the police station.
Okay.
That in the future or at any time, if anything happens to me, it's them.
Banaz and Rahmat kept their relationship in secrecy until one day in December 2005. The pair was caught kissing each other at a bus station. Someone who was familiar with Banaz immediately phoned the family and told them what they saw. This would be the start to a horrific ending. On December 2nd, 2005, her father, uncle, and members of the extended family gathered together at her uncle's house and decided that both Banaz and Rahmat should be killed for bringing shame onto the family and community. Fearing for her safety, Banaz went to the police that same day to report that her uncle had threatened to kill both her and her boyfriend. She overheard the plot through a phone call her mother had with her uncle Ari. On December 12th, she delivered a letter to the Wimbledon police station naming those she claimed were ready to kill her. On New Year's Eve, Banaz took a trip to her grandmother's house in Wimbledon. Her father got Banaz to carry a suitcase into the home. He also brought brandy and forced Banaz to drink from a bottle in a dark bag. He told her to look at the TV and to not turn around and look at what he's doing. But she did. As she turned around, she caught him coming towards her wearing rubber gloves and training shoes. And in that moment, she knew she was going to be killed. He grabbed her by her neck, but she managed to escape his grip towards the door and run out. She then plunged her hand into the next-door neighbor's window to grab their attention, climbed over a fence, and ran barefoot with her hands bleeding until she reached a cafe and collapsed. The police were called to the cafe and took her into the ambulance to the hospital. Rahmat was contacted and recorded a video where he asked Banaz to tell him exactly what happened.
فردستان همو داد رابون و تاریک بو هر تلویزیون کاو کرابو نام سعودی دوباره شخش هاتو كالك رشي لبربون إيروبو دسكشة الشين لا سكشة دابرو مداري أيش سيدانش خوضي أو الشام دانش ما دانش لو حتى أوتو إجورة كيدي حدي بارا الزاد هذا هم لبرقاكي كرد أيد السف باك غاردن اللي ليش بيو ببطيرة خليك ردو بيدا خلاص متخواصيات.
A policewoman who interviewed Banaz, PC Angela Corns, did not believe her. She referred to her as manipulative and melodramatic and wanted to charge her with criminal damage for breaking the window. This same officer also told Banaz's father that she made a report against him. Upon her release, she briefly stayed with Rahmat, but then was persuaded by her family to meet her at a McDonald's to convince her to come back home. Once her relationship was detected, the couple attempted to break up. However, it did not last as they could not stay away from each other, so it continued on. On January 22, 2006, an unsuccessful attempt by Banaz's family was made to kidnap Rahmat. However, Rahmat and Banaz would separately report this incident to the police. Banaz was scheduled to return to the police station on January 24th, but she would never make it. Rahmat reported Banaz missing on January 25th, 2006. The police initially did not take the report seriously. Her parents portrayed themselves as an easygoing, tolerant family, claiming that Banaz often stayed out overnight and they were almost certain that she was not a missing person. However, Rahmat became persistent and began harassing the police into taking action. Consequently, her parents and uncle were interviewed and their homes were searched. The interviews exposed inconsistencies in the account originally given by her parents. An analysis of Rahmat's phone records indicated that Banaz's father was not the indulgent parent he claimed to be. Cross-checking against the numerous contacts Banaz had already had with the police enabled them to compile a list of persons of interest. The police also looked back to Banaz's letter that she sent to the police station on the 12th of December, where she overheard the plot of her murder and found the suspects they were looking for: her uncle Ari Mahmoud, her cousins Omar Hussein, Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Hama. The investigation was taken over by the Metropolitan Police Homicide and Serious Crime Command and was led by Detective Chief Inspector Caroline Good. Initially working on the assumption that Banaz was alive and being held against her will, a search and arrest operation was conducted. Simultaneous raids were carried out at properties across the country, but there was no sign of Banaz. Her phone had not been active since January 23rd, and her bank account remained untouched. Banaz's father and uncle, along with her cousins, were arrested. All were uncooperative within the interviews, and the detectives were met with attempts by members of the wider Kurdish community to thwart the investigation and protect those who were implicated, including providing false stories of spotting Banaz. Throughout it all, her family seemed completely uninterested about her disappearance and never checked in with the police about their daughter's case, except for her older sister Bekal, who ran away years prior. When police contacted her about her sister's disappearance, she knew exactly what had happened. During her interactions with the police, she began receiving threats from the community saying they knew exactly where she lived, so the police had to keep moving her from house to house to protect her safety. Despite the community obstruction, on February 4th, 2006, Muhammad Hama was charged with murder. Instrumental to this decision was Rahmat's positive identification of Hama as one of those who had earlier tried to kidnap him and who had threatened to kill both him and Banaz. While in custody, Hama was covertly recorded bragging about his role in the role of others in the murder of Banaz and the disposal of her body. He directly implicated her uncle Ari Mahmoud and her cousins Muhammad Ali, Omar Hussein, and Dana Amin. The recordings, coupled with the phone and vehicle tracking data, enabled Banaz's remains to be located. Her body was found on April 28, 2006, stuffed in a suitcase and buried in a Birmingham garden. On May 1, 2006, Ari Mahmoud was charged with murder. Her father, Mahmoud Babakir Mahmoud, was charged with murder in August. On the morning of January 24, 2006, Banaz's mother and father left the house, leaving Banaz and her younger sister in the home. Her uncle and 3 cousins, Muhammad Ali, Muhammad Hama, and Omar Hussein, met at Hama's place, and once her parents left, they went over to the Mahmoud house. Banaz was asleep on the living room floor until she was woken up by the 3 men, knowing at that moment exactly what they came to do. The final 2 hours of Banaz's life in the hands of her own family was nothing short of sadistic. What you're about to hear is a transcript from Hama's recordings. Viewer discretion is advised.
They were slapping her, f***ing her. I have her anally. The soul was not getting discharged with anything which took more than half an hour. It was upstairs as well. I was aware. I swear to God I didn't know she was there, f*** her. Ari the bastard lied to us. Ari said there was no one there. Well, I put my leg there on her back, Mohammed on her neck. He made the cord like a hook. I held her hand and said, quickly. I said, put it around quickly. And when she heard that, she was terrified. He immediately put the cord around her neck. She was vomiting. Well, he put the wire around her neck and gave it to me. Then I was holding to the cord so tight and stamping on her neck as well. When I stamped on the back of her neck, her mouth and nose were on the floor, and that was in the suitcase. I was saying, let her soul be discharged. I was kicking her head. The soul would not discharge that easily. The wire around her neck, it went deep through the skin. Her soul was not getting discharged. Because he was able to tighten it further, he tightened it around her neck, and it didn't take more than 4 to 5 minutes. Her soul was discharged, and she didn't make a sound.
After initially claiming that Banaz's service would take place at Regent's Park Mosque, the family made their way to a mosque in Tooting. DCI Caroline Good stated, "They had deliberately lied to us to prevent us from being present. When we arrived at Tooting, it was obvious that plans had not been made for a funeral. The family had pitched up there with no warning. They went in for prayers, leaving their daughter's body in a side road. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that it was only our presence that forced the family to hold a funeral." Banaz was laid to rest at Merton and Sutton Joint Cemetery. Her family left her grave unmarked. On June 26, 2007, a memorial service was held for Banaz at Morden Assembly Hall, following which a granite memorial headstone was placed at her gravesite. Her family did not attend either service. The purchase of the gravestone was arranged by the Iranian and Kurdish Women's Rights Organization, and police officers and lead prosecutor Nazir Afzal were among those who contributed. The 2 other cousins responsible for Banaz's murder, Omar Hussein and Muhammad Ali, fled Britain back to Iraqi Kurdistan before the police were aware that she was murdered. While there, both men had boasted and publicly celebrated their actions casually to community members. In October 2007, the police were notified that Muhammad Ali was in custody in Suleimania, where he had killed a teenage boy in a hit-and-run accident. He was extradited in June 2009 in what was the first ever extradition from Iraq to the United Kingdom, a move described by DCI Good as making legal history. Omar, however, had been hiding out in a remote area of Iraq, shielded by his brothers, one of whom was a member of the Iraqi Armed Forces, and the other a member of the Asayish Security Services. During a dispute with one of his brothers in December 2009, he was shot in the leg and was arrested when he presented himself at the hospital. Omar insisted that he was not in the United Kingdom at the time Banaz was murdered, and that it was a case of mistaken identity. However, UK welfare benefit records and photographic evidence from a previous arrest proved otherwise, and he was extradited in March 2010 after 3 years of hiding. The trial for Banaz's father Mahmoud and uncle Ari lasted 14 weeks. Both her former boyfriend Rahmat and sister Bekhal tested for the prosecution. As a result, both were subjected to threats and intimidation from within the Kurdish community and placed under police protection. In June 2007, both Mahmoud and Ari were found guilty of murder and sentenced to life with a minimum term of 20 years for her father and 23 years for her uncle. Mohammed Hama pleaded guilty and received a life sentence with a minimum of 17 years. Once Omar Hussein and Muhammad Ali were extradited, they too were found guilty of murder in November 2010 and sentenced to life with a minimum of 22 years for Muhammad and 21 years for Omar. In December 2013, Donna Amin was found guilty and jailed for 8 years for helping to dispose of Banaz's body. Amin challenged both of his conviction and sentence, but the appeal was dismissed in September 2014. After her death, a police complaint inquiry found evidence that the police did not make a single effort to trace her husband or to investigate her cases, as she's complained on 5 occasions. It took the police 3 months just to write up a statement. As a result of its investigation, the IPCC recommended that written warnings be issued to several police officers involved in the case, and that 2 Metropolitan Police officers should appear before a disciplinary panel as a result of the worst failings found. There was a panel scheduled for November 17, 2008, related to the incident on December 31, 2005, when Banaz said that her father had tried to kill her, but was dismissed as manipulative and melodramatic by the policewoman Angela Corns, who responded to the call. However, the panel was canceled before it could start, as the key witness, her former boyfriend, Rahmat, declined to take part. Instead, Corns and her supervisory inspector received words of advice, which was the lowest disciplinary action. She was then subsequently promoted. Banaz's sister Biqal is under witness protection and continues to wear niqab and abaya, as she still fears for her life after testifying against her family. As for Rahmat, he immediately went into witness protection after her murder. Despite his family members in Iran being threatened, he testified in both murder trials, and the risks he's taken by doing so were recognized by both Judge Brian Barker and the police. Referring to him as one of 2 real heroes in the case, DCI Caroline Good said, "Without him, we wouldn't have known that Banaz was even missing. He risked his life to go up against his whole community, and in doing so, he gave up everything and everyone he knew." However, Rahmat struggled to adjust to his new life in the isolated nature of witness protection, and seemingly never recovered from Banaz's murder and the details he heard in trial. He once said in an interview, "My life went away when Banaz died. There is no life. The only thing which was keeping me going was the moment to see justice being done for Banaz." In March 2016, the police were called to his home after he texted his neighbor that he was going to take his own life and asked for the police to pick up his dog. He was found alive and rushed to the hospital, but tragically passed away 5 days later while in a coma at age 38. Shame, embarrassment, and dishonor could all lead to honor-based violence and honor killings. They tend to have a collaborative nature where it is a collective, organized, and conspiratory crime, typically planned by family members. It is also almost sacrificial in a sense that they choose death upon someone, most commonly the women in the family, for the sake of the other member's reputation of the family. However, there is nothing honorable about this. It is quite simply murder. This is a tragic case of honor-based violence and failed protection from the police by not taking Banaz's threats and multiple visits seriously. Banaz was a soft-spoken, sweet, and warm young woman who did nothing wrong in her 20 years of living other than falling in love with a man that her family did not approve of. Countless women become victims of HPV every single year, with Britain having 12 to 15 honor killings every year. Because of its nature, the murders could go easily undetected and unreported. Typically, once a child goes missing, it is the family that contacts police, but if the family is someone involved in their child's disappearance, no contact or reporting is made. May Rahmat Soleimani and Banaz Mahmod rest beautifully and their souls replenish. Wishing all victims of HPV a peaceful resting. Thank you all for watching.